Hey, HTDA, and today we're playing some more Mindustry, and I did want to point out, by the way, that in the last episode during the Stronghold level, I really experienced the fact that, even though this game feels like a strategy game most of the time, look at the entire factory I had built. While I felt I was mostly just dealing with waves and destroying the enemy, I built a pretty sizable factory, as you can see. So yeah, this is a very nice kind of mix between real-time strategy and factory game, without really feeling like you're playing one or the other. Anyway, let's move on to the next level. We're going to be playing the Crevice, another high-threat sector. The enemy will send fierce attack forces to take out your base in the sector. Developing Carbide and the Pyrolysis, I don't know how to pronounce this, generator may be imperative for survival. Okie dokie, well, let's launch to the new sector and see what we have to work with. Well, at least we have Arcosite, so we can make power from the get-go. Yay! Oh, would you look at that? We actually have quite a bit of additional resources. We have a first wave incoming of 46 waves. Okay, that's a lot of waves. Let's pause there. Let's see, what do we have? We have this Arcosite over here. That should allow us to make a lot of power. We have beryllium on the floor. There's a lot of beryllium here, actually. There is a lot of graphite as well. Do we have tungsten anywhere? Not that I can see. We do have thorium over there. Just let me double check, because graphite and tungsten tends to look like the same thing, but no, it is definitely not one or the other. Okay, I'm going to do my whole exploring thing once more. Okay, here we go. I did a lot of exploring, and it's actually turning out to be quite valuable to do that, because as you can see, this entire map kind of goes north. There's an enemy spawning zone over here, so that means that I should focus my defenses probably on this area here in the north, so you can kind of have this entire area for myself. And there is a lot of resources in this area. So we already saw the beryllium, the thorium over here. There is a bunch of tungsten as well as graphite over here on the left, along with some slag. So we do actually have all the resources available to us that we are going to need. And yeah, there is a whole lot of graphite and tungsten over here. And there's a reason for that, because I just looked at the research tree, and it looks like we are going to have to work with the Carbide Crucible. This is going to fuse graphite and tungsten into that carbide that the game tells us we're going to need to defend ourselves in this level. Something else that blew my mind when I just saw it is this setup here. So there's a constructor that is making beryllium walls, and then that wall is being transported by the mass driver to this other mass driver over here, and then deconstructed again into normal resources. Now this is a way more compact setup for the mass driver. It's also a little bit more power efficient, I think. Mostly because there's not two of them, and you don't need the whole box to be tossed around either. So yeah, I might use this setup rather than the other setup. I'm not entirely sure. I do think there's probably going to be some resources lost in translation by doing it like this. And I'm also a little bit worried on how much throughput this can handle. But it seems to be doing fairly well. Yeah, I mean, it can transport 24 at the same time. It builds the walls pretty quickly. Yeah, this might actually be a pretty efficient way to transport resources. Now, the last thing I want to know is how much enemies are actually going to spawn initially at the start of this level. We should see a wave coming in pretty soon. And there they are, so now we know that the first wave is just going to be a couple of level 1 units that are pretty easy to defend against, so we don't have to go full panic mode just yet. Okay, so let's try that once more, and let's get things going as soon as we can. Okay, so step 1, I need a lot of beryllium. It's always the bottleneck when I first start to expand, and this should take care of most of that, I think. I'm going to make sure all of this beryllium is boosted, and yeah, I think that should give us plenty of production. I'm kind of worried if this constructor payload mass driver system is going to handle all of this beryllium incoming, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Well, the short answer is no, it cannot handle all this throughput, so we're going to have to deal with that soon, because I can't actually build a bridge across this Arcosite. The length is just wide enough, and that's probably intentional, that I can't build a normal duct bridge over that. So, we're going to have to replace this with something more powerful, but I need tungsten for that. I do have a little bit of that, but I only have a pitiful amount coming in from this single large plasma bore over here with these two nodes. So yeah, we are going to have to get some more access to tungsten, but I also only have a tiny amount of silicon production, and that is definitely something we need a lot more urgently than the tungsten. First things first though, I have the Arcosite power up and running over here. Not too much though, because again, I'm trying to save a little bit of my tungsten, but this is giving me a couple of hundreds of power to work with. Thanks to my scouting, I do know that there's a pretty nice region over here where I can make a boatload of that silicon, because I actually need mineable walls, and a lot of these walls over here I can't actually crunch into sand. So yeah, but there is quite a bit of graphite over here, and these black walls can actually be used for sand mining. As I was trying to build that, I also realized I just needed some more basic graphite as building material, so I upgraded this kind of mining facility over here. I'm definitely going to rework all of this because this is not efficient, but I am on a timer, so I do need to focus on the first things first. And honestly, building all of these these sand farms over here is definitely not what I should have done, probably, because I'm actually also going to be attacked in a little under 3 minutes, and I might want to set up some turrets here just to make sure I actually have the time to get my defenses up and running and start producing some units myself. 15 seconds to spare until the first wave, or at least, well, until that wave spawns. It spawns a little further off, so it takes a minute to get here, but now I have 2 diffuse cannons up, armed with some plasma bores to make sure they have the graphite to shoot with, and a sublimate to fire some lasers at the enemy, powered by this electrolyzer for some fuel, and of course a little container to make sure it can keep firing non-stop until everything is dead. Now this is not the most impressive defense, but this is going to very easily take care of that first wave, hopefully. The only thing that I'm a little worried about is that there's actually a second passage down here. It's a little longer way around, so I think the AI is just going to march its enemies, its units right through these turrets, and that should do the trick, hopefully. Okay, here the enemy is, and it looks like, yeah, this is no problem to defend against. It takes a surprising amount of time to set up facilities, and now I do have all my silicon up and running, so I have pretty much all the silicon and graphite I need. The beryllium is still causing a little bit of trouble, but I do want to set up my tungsten first, but I have another wave incoming in 6 seconds. So we have pretty much, I think, a few more minutes to get our unit production up and running. So a little bit of everything is going to do the trick for that. And I keep having to manually drill additional beryllium, which is starting to get really, really annoying. There we go, that's a fair amount of tungsten production, and now I have everything I need coming in with the exception of thorium and of course the new carbide. But in order to set that up, I am going to have to do something about this beryllium production, because this is definitely not cutting it. And I'm actually going to do that in a way that you might find a little bit weird, but I think it should be optimal in the long run. Here we go, this is a very long way around all of the stuff that is in the way in order to actually just have a direct duct from my production to my main base. But hey, it's working, so you can't really complain when it's working, right? Okay, so I blocked off the second passage just to make sure that most of at least the units are going to come through here, so that I have a nice little killing zone over there. I added in some more graphite production just because I could, and made sure that everything here is now boosted with hydrogen that I'm producing up top anyway. I have the tungsten, so now it's time to really start producing some units. And there we go, tier 1 units in production, which is a good thing too, because the enemies are starting to slip past my towers. But still, all these tier 1 units along with some additional towers should do the trick in keeping the enemies at bay. As you can see, they're nicely running into this funnel over here. Still, I can definitely notice that the strength of the enemy units is increasing, so I'm going to add some tier 2 units to the mix. Since I can only build 15 units of each type, I'm going to have to rely on turrets for most of my defense. Now, I do have a lot of thorium over here, so I'm going to utilize that. But before I can do that, I'm going to need some more power once again. Luckily, we have all the arcosite we need in the world, so power should not be a problem. Just adding a couple of these chemical combustion chambers now put me over 2k surplus once again. There we go, we have some thorium production up and running, and now we are going to have some fun. Introducing the Titan! Let's see if this actually can do some damage. It's doing a surprisingly low amount of damage, honestly, compared to what I was expecting. And these crawlers running all over the place is definitely a problem as well. Luckily, I do have the region projector over here, so that is going to take care of most of the damage that goes on while the enemies are passing. But I might need to upgrade my turret defense a little bit further. Okay, so let's see. 3 of these things should do a lot more damage, I believe. And yeah, they are definitely tearing through some of these tier 1 units. Now, it's still annoying me that these things are walking all over the place, but I can fix that. But I also want to add in some different defenses while I'm at it. But if I want to do more interesting things, I'm going to need some more advanced materials. So here's a couple of Surge Crucibles, so I can start making some of that slag alloy that we can use to then build a couple of these Afflict Towers that are awesome, as we saw a couple of levels ago. But I also, of course, want to focus on the new stuff in this particular episode. And for that, I'm going to need a couple of these impact rails to have some more tungsten production, and I'm also going to need to get some of that graphite, because if I'm remembering correctly, the carbide crucible, let's double check this, requires tungsten, graphite, and heat, and it's going to spit out some carbide in return. And for that, I'm going to need another couple of crucibles, this time the carbide crucibles, which take in the tungsten, a lot of the graphite I'm already producing. I should probably restore my supply lines over here. Speaking of restoring, this single flying unit destroyed a lot of stuff over here. So yeah, I'm gonna have to build some air defenses to make sure that doesn't happen again. Hopefully this little battery of turrets is going to hold off those stray flying units that seem to be coming in about from this direction. So in between my turrets and my flying units, I should be able to fend those off for now. But I'm gonna have to deal with probably larger waves of flying units in the future. And of course at this point I'm low on power again, so I built some more electrolyzers. I feel like I've built like 50 of those by now, and some more chemical combustion chambers as well. And then I did something pretty stupid, and that is build even more chemical combustion chambers. And before you start angrily typing in the comments, yes, I did realize my mistake just right after I made it, but considering you can't reload in this game, I'm going to have to deal with it. So that's a lot of more power. We have some slag over here, and we have some arcosite over here, and all of that is going to be put to a very good use, because as you can see, I built 3 afflict towers, all charged at 160%, thanks to some slag heaters. It's a pretty efficient way to get some heat going, because I have both the arcosite as well as the slag over here, and with all of that power I can field a lot more of these towers. I'm now sitting at an almost 6k, actually it's over 6k now, power surplus, so I could build a lot more of these towers, maybe like over here for example. Even just with electrical heaters it would work just fine, making sure that I have some more air defense over here, etc, etc, and I think that should probably take care of the remaining 23 waves. I mean, no offense, but this is working pretty decently, I would say. It's shredding everything before it even gets to fire at my walls, so yeah. However, coming back to my mistake, I just realized that the pyrolysis generator, or pyrolysis generator, still don't know how to pronounce this, is actually going to use arcite and slag to produce power. So, you know, the exact thing that I just used to make my other power generation. And this is probably going to generate a lot more, so let's try it out. So yeah, this thing actually produces 2.5 times as much power as the other chambers, and all it needs is some slag and arcosite coming in, and it's actually going to produce a whole boatload of water on top of that. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to use that for at this point, but you know, it's free stuff, so you might as well get it along with all that power. Okay, so let's take a second look on the facility that I just built. Can we improve on that and make it produce even more power? And there we go, and it almost feels like the game heard me complaining about building all these electrolyzers, because honestly this is super efficient. As long as you have slag and arcosite, all you need is pretty much just a single one of these electrolyzers to fuel a couple of these pumps, and then you have all the power you need. Each of these is producing 1500, so this setup by itself is already producing 9000 power. It's producing a boatload of water as well, which you could use to fuel all of your drills. And then on top of that, I'm not using any of this ozone that I'm producing here either, so I could use that to make a whole lot of oxide, or I don't know, this feels like definitely a pretty big step forwards in terms of efficiency of my factory. This also means I now have about 12,000 power to spare, so I think it's time to set up a lot more turrets and just spam my way to the end of this set of waves. So, you know, a couple of these afflict towers just powered with electric heaters in this case, to make sure that all those pesky flying units are basically dead before we can even see them. And then I also placed a couple of these at my back door over here. Now, honestly, if any units come through here, it's not really a problem, considering pretty much every of these larger towers I have has this area in range as well. So people will be getting shot at a lot if they try to come through here. But, you know, having a little bit of backup firepower is never a bad thing. And, you know, when in doubt, add some more afflict towers. Now, I did unlock a new type of tower, or at least I can unlock a new different tower, the luster, but I needed a lot of carbide for that, so which is the reason I was just building a lot of those afflicts. But let's see if this adds anything to the table as well. And no, I don't know what adding something to the table means anyway. I don't think that's an actual saying. But anyway, the luster fires a slow-moving single-target laser. I'm not sure how a laser moves slowly, but that's probably the way it angles. But it does about a gazillion damage. This is a lot of damage, honestly. Doesn't do that much damage to buildings, but that's not what we care about. And it also pierces armor. So all in all, it can attack air, it can attack ground. This seems like a pretty badass tower. It will require a fair amount of nitrogen, which is a little bit annoying to make, but let's see if we can set something up. Actually, nitrogen is not annoying to make now. I actually have all the power I need, because I just realized you just need an atmospheric concentrator, and the reason I've had in mind that it was annoying is because we needed heat, but now we can actually very easily produce heat, and all we need is 2 of these to power a single one of those towers. Something like this maybe. I have 2 atmospheric concentrators over here fueled by some electric heaters, providing all the heat it needs to make the nitrogen. Then there's a liquid container in the middle just because I could fit it in there, and then that's fueling the luster, which is joined here by its little friend. It's probably a little bit of a safer setup with this stuff more to the background, but yeah, I'm kind of liking this setup. I have to say I really like these more advanced towers that don't rely on too much like beryllium or things like that needing for ammo, just some stuff that you can produce pretty easily in a local manner, so you can pretty much put these turrets wherever you want on the map. Now let's see how they perform. So what's interesting actually is that the waves are getting smaller. The level of the units in those waves is definitely going up, but the waves themselves, not too impressive. Now let's see, these 10 enemies that are being sent at my base are probably ground units, considering any air units would probably have reached my base by now. But yeah, where are they? There they are. They're incoming now. Let's see. Yeah, so these are definitely higher level tanks, but they are getting ripped apart by these lasers, afflictions, and titans. And yeah, I think we are pretty much done for this level. However, I'm just going to keep adding turrets while I'm at it, because you know, I have to do something while waiting for these waves, although I do know I can speed them up. It's worth noting though that the luster has quite a smaller range than the afflict as you compare this to this. I mean, it's a pretty decent range, especially if you compare it to something like the breach. But yeah, it's definitely something you want to put in the front lines rather than in the back, and then have it supported by things like the afflicts. And you can see these air units are getting torn apart, even though they did actually manage to take out the turret here. But that's nothing I can't easily rebuild. And well, in what ended up, just built some more turrets. So I built kind of a corridor over here because the AI just wants to march straight to my bastion. And if I let them have a clean path, this is exactly the path they will seemingly every time take. I have a lot more afflicts here that are all covering this corridor, as well as a couple of afflicts over here, because why not? I had the time, I had the resources, so I might as well build some more defenses. Now, it's worth noting that I'm still sitting at a 5k surplus in power, and of course there's power stored in every single one of these beam nodes, so I have 500k power almost saved up. All in all, not very hard to defend against. Now it is actually interesting to see that I am getting, I think, tier 4 units sent at me now every now and then. These I think are still the normal level 2 or 3 type of units, but these ones seem to have shields. I mean, just look at it. These things have shields. I mean, they're getting deleted by my lasers and my afflicts, but I don't know, they're powerful units. It's also worth noting that I keep getting a warning that there is a Guardian incoming in a couple of waves. That's the last wave, if I did my math correctly. So let's see if that puts up a bit more of a fight than these waves so far. Well, I guess we're about to find out, and apparently this thing comes with a health bar. Okay, well that's interesting. I do hope that this thing is actually a ground unit, because if it's a flying unit, I might have a problem. So I just put all my units in its way, just in case that's actually where it's going to come from. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it should follow the same route as everything else. Otherwise, this would be a very nasty surprise at the end of a very long level. Now, it also seems like it's actually not just one unit, it's 4 units. That's interesting. So, where is it? Can I actually see it on the map? Oh, there it is. There it is. Ooh, these things look impressive. Let's see what they actually do. Well, they get melted. That's what they do. Okay, well, mission accomplished, I guess. That wasn't that hard. I really like the design of this type of level, by the way. even though it might look very easy, I can very easily see this actually going very wrong for people that are either less experienced or that are just making other assumptions, maybe a different type of build, I don't know. But it's definitely ramping up the difficulty as you go, but it doesn't do so in a too punishing way that makes you kind of have to restart the entire level, as long as you're, you know, keeping up and building new stuff and things like that. I mean, it's very easy because I actually built all these high-level towers, but if I would have tried to defend myself with, for example, my units, or with just like these base towers, this would have looked a lot different. Well, anyway, if you're still here, you're awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.